Order. I call the Honourable Member Philip Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
You're welcome.
I want to just note, Mr Speaker, just in beginning this speech, how reliant members of Parliament are on the many staff who support us in this Parliament. And one such staff member is Sarah Austin-Smith, who works in the Labor media team and has supported me on a number of occasions on housing issues. And she's about to leave us shortly, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank Sarah for her work, but also to thank all of the staff in this institution who make it run, sir. I want to say first, Mr Speaker, that there's nothing wrong in principle with a bill that sets up special housing areas, with a bill that makes new greenfields land available or fast-tracks consenting. There is a housing crisis in this country, largely because of the economic settings that this government has refused to change over the last 5 years. The crisis is taking the Kiwi dream of home ownership further and further out of reach for a whole generation of young New Zealanders. It requires bold action, but this bill is not it. This bill is the centrepiece of the government's housing policy, and in spite of the claims made by the Minister in the earlier address, it falls well short of what New Zealanders want and expect from their government in tackling the housing crisis. This government refuses to crack down on speculators. It refuses to consider the advocacy of almost every mainstream economist in this country that says that a capital gains tax should be implemented to take the speculative steam out of the housing market. They refuse to stand by Kiwi first home buyers and do something about the offshore speculators who daily outbid young New Zealand first home buyers at property auctions. They have no concern that real estate companies are actively marketing New Zealand houses in places like Hong Kong and Singapore as some kind of happy hunting ground for property speculators. No capital gains tax, no stamp duty, and no restrictions on foreign ownership. Worse, even still, National refuses to roll up its sleeves and actually build affordable houses. For some reason, they're allergic to the notion that a government in a housing crisis like this should actually build affordable houses. And in spite of the Fairfax poll a few days ago, sir, that showed 73% of New Zealanders support the policy of the government actually building affordable houses. Instead, they prefer to tinker with the RMA and blame councils for the worst housing crisis this country has seen in a generation. The final piece of the picture, sir, that is the essential context for this bill is the agreement negotiated in May between the Reserve Bank and the government on the introduction of macro-prudential tools that would give the Reserve Bank more tools to deal with monetary policy and particularly loan-to-value ratio lending limits. They bungled it, they've panicked, and now first home buyers are being shafted by this policy, which has the effect, sir, of locking out 80% of first home buyers who cannot get a 20% deposit together. First home buyers are now being affected by interest rates going up. In fact, everyone who borrows money is now being affected by interest rates going up. All four of the major banks have put their rates up, citing the effect of loan-to-value ratio lending limits. Bank charges have gone up specifically for low deposit borrowers. And the banks are charging a premium. All four banks are charging a premium to low deposit borrowers because of the government's failure to negotiate even a temporary exemption for first home buyers from the loan-to-value lending limits. They are a generation, sir, is being locked out of the Kiwi dream of home ownership. Now, we voted for this bill at first reading during the budget debates because we took the view that the housing crisis is so severe, it's having such a terrible impact on New Zealand families, and we felt that that if the Auckland Council and the government had spent 6 weeks trying to negotiate an accord, it was worth giving serious scrutiny at Select Committee. But we will not vote for it now. It is weak. We have no confidence that it will result in any affordable housing being built, and one submitter after another came to Select Committee and said that. We have no confidence even that it will make housing any more affordable in general. It's based on a kind of trickle-down theory of housing. If you build more houses, no matter how expensive they are, somehow that is going to make houses more affordable. Mr Banks is shaking his head, but I ask him this: if you import more Maseratis into New Zealand, will it make the Corolla more affordable? It is a fairy tale of economics. There is no justification for it, and, sir, we will not go along with it. The Minister explained to the Select Committee under questioning that if you build a whole lot of $800,000 houses, then some people are going to sell their houses, possibly cheaper ones, to move into the $800,000 ones, and this is how this bill will make housing more affordable. It is trickle-down housing economics and nothing more. I want to note, in response to the Minister's comments, that he rushed to the House a swag of amendments an hour or two before the third reading committee stages of this bill. Those SOPs amended 57 of the bill's 89 clauses. He didn't see fit to bring those amendments to the Select Committee. He tabled them on the floor of this House only an hour or two before the committee stages of that reading, and that, sir, is sadly symptomatic of the rushed ad hoc approach we've come to expect from this Minister. At least, I suppose, the government has bowed to pressure and all the comments made by submitters who came to the Select Committee and complained that the bill contained no serious mechanism to deliver affordable housing. Well, the amendments give the Minister, by order in Council, give the power, by order in Council, to regulate for a share of affordable housing in any qualifying developments. But he declined to put the actual mechanism into law. But he only covered the bill's inadequacy with a fig leaf of a power to regulate. And frankly, sir, on this government's record, that gives us no confidence whatsoever that he will use this power. One of the first things this government did when it came to power in 2008 was it repealed Marion Street's law that it gave councils the power to practice inclusionary zoning, to require a share of affordable housing in new developments. The very thing that should be in this bill. The very thing that should be in this bill. Nick Smith voted to repeal the law that would have done that in 2008, and now he's brought to this House a diluted, weak, watered-down version of the same thing. This government stripped the Hobsonville development of state housing, and under pressure from Labor, the best they could do was reinsert a watered-down promise to build some small number of so-called affordable houses costing more than $500,000, affordable to very, very few Aucklanders. So, and that Minister and others like the Honourable Bill English are on record all over the place as rejecting the notion of inclusionary zoning, rejecting the very notion of requiring developers to build a share of affordable housing. That is why we have no confidence in that Minister's provisions. There are several other defects I want to just note in closing, Mr Speaker. This bill weakens quality controls, it undermines environmental standards. Is it any wonder that Aucklanders are alarmed by Nick Smith's comments in the New Zealand Herald that Aucklanders had better get used to lower quality housing developments? That is a major concern. Secondly, the override clauses in this bill are undemocratic. They are part of a trend under this government of stripping away the powers of communities and local government and constantly centralising power to the executive. It's a mockery of the whole notion of an accord that this bill gives the government the power to do whatever it wants, regardless of what a council wants to see. How can a council negotiate a housing accord in good faith with a gun held to its head in that way? The bill also undermines the protections given to special areas like the Waitakere Ranges under the Waitakere Ranges Heritage Area Act, which that act currently has primacy over other laws and regional and district plans. But this bill requires only that decisions made in relation to special housing areas give consideration to that act. is it any wonder that people in West Auckland are worried about housing developments in the Waitakere Ranges? Labour, sir, will not support this bill.
I call the Honourable Member Melissa Lee. Annyeonghaseyo.
안녕하세요.